Well, the cyclorama, was a major phenomenon in the 19th century, but it's just before cinema, and it's in the round. So you enter into this rotunda, it's lit. It's like the peak of the painter's creative enterprise, to make the painting surround the viewer and to create the illusion of depth and of space and to lure the viewer into the feeling of being a part of the scene.
E será que é só uma história que tem aqui?
Cada figura trouxe uma história.
Parece que cada figura conta uma história. Ao mesmo tempo que a gente está numa sala assim redonda, e ela tem começo e tem fim, essa história? Não, né?
Most of my work is, the illusion is that it's about past events. The illusion is that it's simply about a particular point in history and nothing else. And it's really part of the ruse that I tend to like to approach the complexities of my own life by distancing myself and finding a parallel in something prettier and more genteel, like that picture of the Old South that's a stereotype. I started to read the book, Gone with the Wind, and was thrilled with how, engrossing that story was and how grotesque it was at the same time. The romance of it, the storytelling, it was so rich and epic, and that was what I hadn't expected. I hadn't expected to be titillated in the way that, stories like that are meant to titillate. It was so much fodder for the work that I wanted to do. The distressing part was always being caught up in the voice of the heroine, Scarlett O'Hara. Scarlett, in her desperation, is, digging up dried up roots and tubers down by the slaves' quarters, and she's overcome by a niggery scent and vomits. And it's scenes like that, might go washed over by the sort of vast, epic structure of the story, but that is an epic moment. A lot of my work has been about the unexpected. Kind of wanting to be the heroine and yet wanting to kill the heroine at the same time. And that kind of dilemma, that push and pull, is the underlying turbulence that I bring to each of the pieces that I make. The silhouette lends itself to, avoidance of the subject, not being able to look at it directly. My earliest memory of wanting to be an artist, I was 3, I was sitting on my dad's lap, and he was drawing in his studio, which was the garage of our house in Stockton, California. And I remember thinking to myself that I wanted to do what he did. And he used to give me chalk to draw on the sidewalk, and he would, document my creations. When we moved from California to Georgia, I know that I was having nightmares about moving to the South. The South is already, it's a place loaded with like I said, mythology, but also a reality of, viciousness. And it was just such a frightening prospect to be sort of borderline between child and teenager and going into an environment where black kids are being targeted. Stone Mountain, Georgia, this is where I did most of my growing up. It's like a Mount Rushmore type of thing of the Confederate heroes. That is pretty significant. Stone Mountain was a haven for the Ku Klux Klan. So that place had a little bit more resonance. It was just so in your face. There was no real hiding the fact. What black stands for in white America, what white stands for in black America are all loaded with our deepest psychological perversions and fears and longings. Most of the pieces, I guess, have to do with exchanges of power, attempts to steal power away from others. I was tracing outlines of profiles, thinking about physiognomy and racist sciences and minstrelsy and shadow and the dark side of the soul. And I thought, well, I've got black paper here. I was making silhouette paintings, but they weren't the same thing. And it seemed like the most obvious answer. It took me forever to come to, which was just to make a cut in the surface of this black thing. I had this black paper, and if I just made a cut in it, I was creating a hole. It was like the whole world was in there for me, And I've always been interested in the melodramatic, in sort of outrageous gestures. I love history painting and this artistic, painterly conceit, which is to, make a painting a stage and to think of your characters, your portraits or whomever, as characters on that stage. And to freeze frame a moment that is full of pain and blood and guts and drama and glory. This work is 2 parts research and 1 part paranoid hysteria. It's called Insurrection. Our tools were rudimentary, yet we pressed on. An image of a slave revolt in the antebellum South, where the house slaves got after their master with their utensils of everyday life. And really it started with a sketch of a series of slaves disemboweling the master with a soup ladle. My reference in my mind was the surgical theater paintings of Thomas Eakins. Overhead projectors created a space where the viewer's shadow would also be projected into the scene, so that maybe they would, become implicated. Overhead projectors are a didactic tool. They're a schoolroom tool, so they're about, in my thinking, they're about conveying facts. The work that I do is about projecting fictions into those facts. I began to love the kind of self-promotion surrounding the work of the silhouette artist. You know, they would have to show up in different towns and advertise their skills, and sometimes very overblown language describing their incredible skills, you know, able to cut, you know, in less than a minute, you know, 10 seconds for your sitting, for your likeness, accurate likenesses. And I also began to question this whole idea of, you know, accurate likenesses. The work takes on this narrative structure, creates all the elements of the story, and I just need the viewer, like an author needs a reader, to fill in the rest of the tension of the story. And this is a book I made in 1997 called Freedom, a Fable, a curious interpretation of the wit of a negress in troubled times. The negress, as a term that I apply to myself, is, you know, a real and artificial construct. Everything I'm doing is trying to skirt the line between fiction and reality. It's not just examination of race relations in America today. I mean, that's a part of it. It's part of being an African-American woman artist, but it's about how do you make representations of your world given what you've been given.
To learn more about Art21, Art in the 21st Century, and to download the free Educator's Guide, please visit PBS online at pbs.org. Art21, Art in the 21st Century is available on videocassette or DVD. The companion book to the series is also available. To order, call PBS Home Video at 1-800-PLAY-PBS.